Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I hope you're ready to exercise your brain today, because we are opening a file that, on the surface, it looks less like a standard report and more like a riddle. You know, a riddle wrapped in an enigma.
It is definitely one of the most visually striking files we've ever had to cover. It's really something else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to start by asking you and everyone listening to picture three distinct things. Just, visualize them floating in the space right in front of you. Okay. First, picture the Chernobyl nuclear disaster of 1986. The ruins, the radiation, that whole exclusion zone. Got it?
Vividly. Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Second thing, picture the global COVID-19 pandemic. The masks, the lockdowns, that really eerie silence you'd hear in the city streets back in early 2020.
Hard to forget that.
And third, just picture a massive, dirty, disorganized stack of cash. Just piles and piles of banknotes.
It really sounds like the start of a very dark joke, doesn't it?
It does.
Or maybe the ingredients for some conspiracy theorist's vision board.
It really, really does. But the document we are looking at today, which is actually this massive catalog for a unique collaboration between the Zero Corruption Conference and the Fourth Bloc International Eco-Poster Triennial, it argues that these three things are not just, historically related.
Right.
They are arguably different faces of the exact same monster.
And I'll admit, when I first picked this source material up, that felt like a really heavy lift. I mean, connecting a nuclear meltdown to a virus to bribery, it sounds like a stretch.
Huge stretch.
But once you actually get into the philosophy here, it makes this terrifying kind of sense.
It does. And we aren't just looking at a few essays here. We are looking at a collection of about 1,300 posters.
Yeah, submitted by 450 designers from, 40 different countries?
40 countries. We're talking the U.S., China, Ukraine, Mexico, Costa Rica. I mean, it's truly global chorus.
And that global aspect is so key here.
Yeah.
This isn't just one country complaining about its own politicians. This is a worldwide artistic response to a systemic failure.
Exactly. So our mission today is to sift through all this visual data. We're going to look at the zero corruption future. We're going to try and figure out how these artists are trying to visualize something that is, by its very nature, invisible.
Right.
Because think about it. Radiation. It's invisible until it kills you.
Totally. You can't see the danger in the air around you.
And a virus.
Yeah.
Invisible until you're on a ventilator.
Yeah.
And corruption.
It's invisible until the building collapses, or, until the forest is gone. Or until all the money for the new hospital wing just vanishes into some offshore account.
Precisely. So this deep dive is all about making the invisible enemy visible so we can actually fight it.
And before we dive into the art itself, we have to set the stage. The context for this is it's everything. The source material mentions this conference was originally scheduled for April 2020.
April 2020. Wow. That date, it just carries so much weight now, doesn't it?
It really does. It should ring two bells for anyone who is paying attention to history at the time.
Well, the first one is obvious. April 2020 was right when the entire world shut down for COVID. I remember that month. It was just panic and silence.
Yes, exactly. But for the organizers of this event, April 2020 had a double meaning. It's also the anniversary of the Chernobyl disaster.
Of course.
Which happened in late April 1986. So the organizers were planning to gather in Kyiv, and they were actually going to visit the exclusion zone as part of the conference.
Wow. That would have been powerful.
Incredibly. But then, obviously, the pandemic disrupted everything.
Talk about a heavy dose of irony.
Yeah.
You plan a massive international conference about invisible global threats, radiation, and corruption, and then a new invisible global threat cancels your conference.
It's poetic in a very, very grim way. And the organizers, they make this point explicitly in the intro. They say, corruption has no boundaries, just like radiation.
And then they had to add the third one.
And then they had to add, and just like a virus.
That is such a powerful framing. It completely changes how I think about the topic. We usually think of corruption as like a guy in a suit handing an envelope to another guy in a suit.
Yeah, it feels transactional.
Right. It feels like a crime, sure, but a kind of boring one. A white-collar crime. It feels like paperwork.
Exactly. We think of it as, someone gets rich, someone else maybe loses a bit of tax money. But comparing it to radiation...
Yeah.
That changes the stakes entirely.
It implies that it permeates the environment. It gets into everything.
Exactly. It suggests it poisons the soil, the air, the very structure of society, and often without you even seeing it until the damage is completely irreversible.
So it's not just a theft.
No, it's a contamination.
Okay, so let's unpack where this philosophy actually comes from. Because the driving force behind this whole art collection is a group called the Fourth Bloc. And their origin story is... well, it's intense.
It really is. The president of the Fourth Bloc Triennial is a man named Oleg Vaklenko. He's a professor now, a very highly respected figure in the design world, but his backstory is the key to understanding this entire project.
Yeah, I was reading his bio in the source material, and my jaw just hit the floor. He wasn't just, an artist sitting in a studio dreaming up metaphors. In 1986, he was a liquidator.
And for those who might not know the term, and it's a term that just chills the blood if you know the history, liquidators were the civil and military personnel who were called in to deal with the consequences of the Chernobyl disaster.
They were the ones sent in to literally liquidate the problem.
Exactly. They were the ones shoveling radioactive graphite off the roofs, building the sarcophagus, trying to contain the fire. I mean, they were working in absolutely lethal environments.
And Vaklenko was there. He was fighting that nuclear fire. And the text, it calls this his turning point of truth.
That's the phrase that stuck with me, too. You have to remember the context of the Soviet Union in 1986. The official narrative was always, everything is fine, or at least we have it under control.
Right.
The whole Soviet machine was built on this idea that the state could conquer nature.
But being there, on the ground, wearing the gear, hearing the dosimeters clicking away, that must have been a different reality.
Well, that's it. Vaklenko realized that the people were not being told the truth. He saw this massive gap between the propaganda, the everything is fine news reports, and the reality, which was that the reactor was wide open and spewing poison into the sky.
It shattered his entire worldview.
Completely. He talks in the text about how it changed his view on the fight against nature. He realized you can't fight nature with lies. Chernobyl showed him that nature fights back and that the cost of lies is measured in human lives.
So 5 years later, in 1991, which was the 5th anniversary of the disaster, he didn't just, write a memoir or something. He launched an art movement.
Right. He used his passion for design to create the Fourth Bloc. The name itself refers to the fourth reactor at the Chernobyl plant, the one that exploded. And the goal was to use these posters to teach the lessons of that disaster.
Okay, so usually the fourth block is about ecology. It's about anti-nuclear proliferation, clean environment, saving the whales, that sort of thing. But this specific project we're looking at is about corruption. And Vaklenko admits in the intro that he was actually hesitant at first.
He was. He says so explicitly. He doubted the collaboration. To him, ecology was about nature. It was pure, green, vital, and zero corruption just sounded like politics.
Dirty politics.
Dirty, human, complicated politics. And in the art world, sometimes people want to keep those things separate. He thought, is this really our lane?
But then he had this realization, and this is the synthesis that, for me, drives this whole deep dive. He started connecting the dots.
He realized you can't have one without the other. I mean, think about illegal deforestation. Why does that happen? Is it because we don't know how to grow trees? No.
No, of course not.
It happens because someone was bribed to look the other way while the logging trucks rolled out of the forest.
Or think about illegal amber mining completely destroying landscapes. Or air pollution regulations that just get ignored.
Right. If a factory is dumping sludge into a river, it's not just an environmental accident. It's usually because the inspector got a payout, or maybe the factory owner is the mayor's cousin.
Vaklenko has this great quote in the text. He says, if you think about it, many of the environmental problems are related to corruption in one way or another.
So this marriage of ecology and politics isn't forced at all. It's essential. You can't fix the environment if the system that's supposed to be managing it is rotten.
You can't scrub the air if the people in charge are selling off the filters.
Exactly.
So that sets the stage. They send out the call for entries, Design Against Monsters. And the response was huge. 1,300 posters.
Which brings us to the visual language, and this is the part I just love.
Yeah, let's get into the art itself.
Yeah.
Because this is the central challenge, right?
Yeah.
How do you draw corruption?
It's a fascinating design problem. If I ask you to draw an apple, you draw an apple. If I ask you to draw a theft, maybe you draw a burglar mask or something. But corruption.
What even is it?
It's a transaction, it's a handshake, it's a systemic failure. It's totally abstract.
And yet, these designers found ways to make it incredibly concrete. The catalog breaks them down into themes, and the first big one is this idea of money as a silencer.
Yes. This is a recurring visual motif. Money isn't shown as wealth here, it's shown as a gag.
Let's look at this one by Shinichi Ikawa from Japan. The title is Zero Corruption, Yay. But the yes is spelled with a yen sign, a euro sign, and a dollar sign.
It's so blunt, there are no subtle hints there. It points directly to the three largest world currencies as the tools of the trade. It's saying that yes to corruption is spoken in these languages.
But Ikawa has another poster that's even more disturbing.
Oh, the one with the Band-Aids?
Yes.
Yes. Describe that for the listener, because it's so visceral.
Okay, so imagine a face. Just a generic human face. But instead of regular medical tape, the artist has used banknotes, black ones, to tape over the mouth. But it's not just the mouth.
Right.
They form a cross, an X, over the eyes, too.
And that is the key detail, the eyes. It's not just about silencing the whistleblower or, buying someone's silence so they don't speak. It's about blinding the system itself.
Ah.
Corruption makes the official blind to the crimes being committed right in front of them.
It's a see no evil, speak no evil situation, but it's being enforced by cash.
Exactly. The money physically obstructs the senses. It creates a sort of sensory deprivation tank where morality can't get in.
There's another one in this vein by Fabian Carreras from Argentina. It's very minimalist. It's just a dollar sign.
Yeah.
But the lines in the dollar sign are drawn in a way that it's like it's knotting a mouth shut.
Yes. It's tying the mouth of a high-ranking official. It suggests that money itself restricts truth. We often think of money as freedom or power, but in these posters, money is a muzzle.
That is such a flip of the script. Money is a muzzle.
It creates a whole visual vocabulary where currency is a weapon against speech. It's not a tool for trade, it's a tool for suppression.
Okay, so moving to the second theme, which links right back to Veklenko's origin story, the corruption of nature. This is where the ecology aspect really shines through.
It really does. There's a poster here by Nikodem Prgowski from Poland. It's a font-based poster, really simple. It just plays with the letters zero corruption, zero CO2.
Simple. Right.
Simple, but it argues that climate goals are completely impossible without governance goals. You can't have a green future with a dirty government.
Right.
But the one that really struck me, and I know it struck you too, was by the Ukrainian designer Darina Zadorozhnaya.
Oh, the computer screen one. I absolutely love this. It's so relatable in a frustrating way.
It is. It shows a computer screen, and there are multiple error windows popping up. You know that annoying Windows error sound? You can almost hear this poster.
Done. Yeah.
And the text on the error message reads, "Error. Forest not found."
Forest not found? It's brilliant because it takes that digital frustration we all feel, that sense of helplessness when a system crashes, and it applies it to the Carpathian forests. The source mentions the bald patches in the forests from illegal logging.
It perfectly captures that feeling of where did it go? You look up and the file is gone. You look up and the whole mountain is bare.
And just like a computer error, it implies a system failure. It wasn't an accident. The system crashed. The operating system of the forest, the laws, the rangers, the protections, it all failed because of a bug. And that bug is corruption.
Mm-hmm.
There's one more in this nature section that is just terrifying. Elfleda Klaxon from Germany. It's described as a gray space filled with smoke.
But you have to look closer at the smoke. It's not just smoke. It's made of twisted bills.
Oh, wow.
Yuan, dollars, euros. They're curled up and literally burning, creating this deadly smog.
That is a brutal image. We are literally breathing in the byproducts of greed.
And the analysis in the catalog asks the question, how can future generations survive? The poster implies a world where there are no commitments, nothing to talk about, only money. It's the ultimate end state of a corrupt system. A choking atmosphere made of cash.
You have all the money in the world, but the air is unbreathable.
It's the ultimate Pyrrhic victory.
This leads us into the third visual theme, which I've been thinking of as structural failure.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you build a society on bribes, the foundation is just weak.
Right. Sedimir Kostovit from the USA has a poster that visualizes this perfectly. It shows a structure. It looks kind of like a building or a tower, but it's incredibly fragile. It's falling apart like a house of cards.
It's a great reminder that corruption isn't just unfair, it's unstable.
Precisely. We often tolerate a certain level of corruption because, well, things still get done. The bridge gets built, even if it costs twice as much as it should have. But this art argues that eventually the physics of it catch up with you. You can't cheat gravity, and you can't cheat structural integrity. If you skimped on the concrete, eventually the building falls.
And then, for a bit of dark humor, there's Volodymyr Lesniak from Ukraine. The title is Having Stolen, Have Some Rest.
Yes, I love that one. It's a satirical look at the vacation mindset. You steal from the public pot, and then you're off to the Maldives.
Right.
It highlights the complete disconnect between the crime and the lifestyle it buys. It shows the absurdity of it, the calmness of the criminal, while the world is burning around them.
So we've got the art, we've got the visual language, but the catalog also includes these really powerful essays and statements from the people running the Zero Corruption Conference, and they have a very specific argument about how corruption works on a global scale.
This is where we bring in the heavy hitters. Daria Kaleniuk from the Anti-Corruption Action Center and Hannah Hopko, the chairwoman of the conference. Their argument pushes back hard against the idea that corruption is just a local problem.
Right. They say we rarely associate things like poverty, war, and disease directly with corruption. But they call corruption the invisible cause.
And if you think about it, it makes sense. Why is the hospital underfunded during a pandemic? Why is the bridge collapsing? Why is the army ill-equipped to fight?
Because the resources were siphoned off somewhere along the line.
Exactly. And they use a lot of medical metaphors in the text. Even before the pandemic hits fully, they are talking about corruption as a virus. They say it feeds dictatorships, sucks up resources, and infects other societies. And this infection mechanism is crucial. They describe what they call a vicious circle.
Okay, walk us through that circle. How does it work?
Okay, so you have a corrupt official in a developing nation, or maybe an authoritarian regime. They steal public money. We're talking millions, sometimes billions. Now, do they keep that money in their local bank?
No way. It's not safe there. The currency might crash, or a new government might come in and seize it.
Exactly. So they need to move it to a stable jurisdiction. They buy real estate in London, they invest in businesses in New York, they stash it in offshore accounts managed by firms in Switzerland or the Caribbean.
So the dirty money flows from the developing world into the developed world.
And that means the developed world is complicit. It penetrates the global financial system. So this isn't just a Ukraine problem or a global South problem. If New York real estate prices are skyrocketing because kleptocrats are laundering money through luxury condos,
That's corruption infecting the U.S. economy. It distorts the whole market,
and the text mentions a group they call the Black Knights.
which sounds like a villain group from a fantasy novel.
It essentially is. The source describes them as an army of PR consultants, lobbyists, accountants, and lawyers. These are the professionals in Western democracies who launder the dirty money and, just as importantly, attack the truth.
Wow. That is a scathing indictment. These are people who wear nice suits and work in glass skyscrapers, but the text is calling them the support system for dictators.
They are the immune system suppressors. They make sure the virus of corruption can survive and thrive inside a democracy. They use the legal system to silence journalists who investigate. They use PR firms to whitewash the reputation of the dictator.
So in this view, corruption isn't just the initial act of stealing. It's the entire global industry built around hiding the theft.
Precisely. And that industry is global.
Which brings us to the twist in the story. We're in March 2020. The contest is wrapping up. The Black Knights are doing their thing.
Yeah.
And then the world just stops.
The COVID-19 pandemic hits, and the timeline shifts dramatically. The conference gets postponed. But interestingly, the organizers decide not to close the poster contest entirely.
Right. They pivot. They decide to keep the mental health nomination open until the summer.
They recognize that the context had fundamentally changed, and the source text draws these incredible parallels between corruption and coronavirus.
They list them out, right?
Yeah, side by side, both have no boundaries, both are invisible, both bring death and destruction.
And both require a coordinated global response.
Exactly. You can't fight a pandemic in just one country. It will just leak back in from the neighbors. And you can't fight money laundering in just one country for the exact same reason. The money will just move next door.
So the new posters start coming in, and they're reflecting this new lockdown reality. The focus shifts to people locked within four walls with children, people who lost their jobs.
So let's look at how the designers visualized this new mental landscape. There's a poster here by Wei Shu from China titled Coronary Thinking.
Coronary thinking. Is that a play on words?
Yeah, linking coronavirus to the heart, coronary. The visual is a head, but it's filled with, well, it's just chaotic. It looks like a tangle.
Is it question marks? Or is it supposed to be the virus shape itself?
I think it's meant to be both, It's the anxiety made visible. The source quote says, coronary thinking is more terrible than coronary virus.
That sounds like it's talking about panic, or maybe the confusion and the misinformation that spreads even faster than the germ itself. The virus attacks the lungs, but the fear attacks the mind.
That's it, exactly. The mental toll of uncertainty. And then you have Patricia Langawa from Poland with a poster called Internet Addiction.
Oh, this one hits home for anyone who doom-scrolled their way through 2020. Describe it.
It shows a head that's been opened up, and there are just wires and cables everywhere. It suggests the brain is hardwired directly into the internet.
We were all plugged in, weren't we? Just waiting for news, waiting for the numbers, waiting for some kind of hope.
And that vulnerability leads directly to the next big theme, fake news.
Oh, this is huge. The information war.
The source material is very, very clear on this. It views social networks as weapons. They can be used by modern knights of light, which I love as a phrase, countering the Black Knights, or they can be used by dark figures of misinformation.
And in a time of crisis, whether it's Chernobyl or COVID information, is literally life or death. If you lie about the radiation levels, people die. If you lie about the vaccine or the virus, people die.
There's a great poster by Jose Alberto Hernandez from Costa Rica called What's Up With You? And it's a Pinocchio reference.
Oh, with the long nose.
Yes, but the nose is coming right out of the WhatsApp logo. In many countries, WhatsApp is the primary vector for rumors and fake news. So it links the technology directly to the lie. It's saying, this app is growing a nose.
That's brilliant. There's another Chinese poster by Xiaofan called Wash Your Eyes.
That one is so visceral. We were all told to wash our hands, right? Scrub for 20 seconds, use hand sanitizer everywhere. This poster suggests we need to physically cleanse our vision.
Like you need to get the pollution of false information out of your eyes.
Precisely. The garbage in our brains is just as dangerous as the virus on our hands. In fact, Lai Conway has a poster that's explicitly called Brain and Garbage.
It's amazing how these artists from totally different cultures, China, Costa Rica, Poland, are all circling the exact same anxiety. They all feel this pollution of the truth.
It just validates the whole zero corruption thesis. These problems are universal. The lie in Beijing looks a lot like the lie in Washington or Kiev. The mechanism of deception is the same everywhere.
We're coming into the final stretch here, and I want to talk about the future. Because despite all this heavy subject matter, radiation, viruses, theft, fake news, there is a section dedicated to students that feels, well, surprisingly optimistic.
Yeah, this is the Future Generation Project. It was a specific collaboration with students from the Kharkiv State Academy of Design and Arts.
And the project was called 24 Faces of Evil, which, again, sounds like the title of a horror movie.
It does, but the concept was stop corruption. They took the word corruption and they turned each of the letters into these visual monsters.
So the C becomes a biting mouth, or the O becomes a black hole or something.
Exactly. Each letter represents a different facet of what they call this social disease. But the key takeaway, according to the catalog, isn't the monsters, it's the word S-P.
How so?
Well, the text says the word S-P acts as the unifying element across all 24 designs. It represents a conscious and confident attitude. It's not just observing the monster, it's halting it. It's an imperative. It's an action.
It's the energy of youth, isn't it? They look at this massive structural rot that the older generation has left for them, Soviet legacies, oligarchies, climate change, and they just say, stop.
And they are trying to cure it with design. It's this fundamental belief that if you can name the evil and if you can draw the evil, you can start to defeat the evil. It's about reclaiming agency.
So bringing this all together, we started with a mystery, the link between Chernobyl, COVID, and cash.
And I think we've solved it. They are all systems that transcend borders. They are all invisible threats that contaminate everything they touch.
The main thesis from the experts in this catalog is that you cannot solve climate change or global security without first solving corruption. They're the same fight.
That is the big takeaway. You can't build a green energy grid if the money for the solar panels is being stolen. You can't stop a pandemic if the health minister is buying fake masks from his cousin's company.
Right.
Corruption is the structural failure that prevents us from solving anything else. It is the bottleneck of progress.
And reflecting on the art itself, Oleg Viklenko said something really interesting. He said, with a 70 by 100 centimeter sheet of paper, you can hardly defeat such a monster as corruption.
He's being realistic. A poster is just paper. It doesn't put handcuffs on anyone. It doesn't freeze a bank account.
But then he adds that it can change how we see it. It breaks the secrecy.
And that's it. Corruption relies on darkness. It relies on being boring, complicated, and invisible. It relies on people glazing over when they hear a term like money laundering.
Yeah.
These 1,300 posters, they just turn the lights on. They make corruption look ugly, ridiculous, and incredibly dangerous. And once you see it that way, you can't unsee it.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. We've talked about the Black Knights, the lawyers and accountants who enable this system.
And we've talked about the consumer.
The source quotes a line, "Humanity is waiting for a decision of the responsible leaders." But here's the provocation. If corruption is an invisible radiation that infects the developed world just as much as the developing world, Are we part of the support system?
That's the uncomfortable question, isn't it? When we buy cheap goods without asking about the supply chain, are we funding the corruption that destroys the forest? When we click on the sensational headline without checking the source, are we helping spread the virus of misinformation?
The posters show money taping our mouths shut. The question we should ask ourselves is, are we the ones holding the tape?
That is something to mull over. Are we, in some small way, the unwitting liquidators of a disaster we helped create?
Deep thoughts for a Tuesday. Thank you for joining us on this dive into the visual language of the invisible. It's been a heavy one, but a really important one.
Stay curious and wash your eyes.
We'll see you next time.